The Iowa football depth chart is out for week 1 against Albany, and we got some major surprises to kick off the Hawkeye football season.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio here in the state of Iowa, including currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network. You can hear me each weekday from noon to 2 on our flagship 106.3 KXNO in Des Moines and the Sports Radio Network across Iowa in Sioux City, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and the Quad Cities. You can hear me talking plenty of Hawkeyes there each and every day. Well, we're going to take a look at Albany. Who are the Great Danes? A quick look ahead at the matchup on Saturday and how much resistance can we expect coming in from Albany. We're going to talk about the depth chart, though. That is our major conversation pieces. The game notes came out on Monday, and that means it is time to overreact to what we saw with that. We certainly have something that we've been waiting for. And the reason that this depth chart is a little bit different than what we've gone through in the past is just because we haven't had this sheer volume of depth charts that we normally get in past seasons. In most seasons at Big Ten football media days, there was a depth chart that was released at that time. Also, we get a depth chart a little bit earlier than we do game week, sometimes coming out on the Friday the week before, about 8 days before kickoff. That's why it's different this year. And Kirk Ferentz has mentioned one of the reasons for that is because, well, some people get rankled by it. And you get not just parents, but you have agents and people asking for more money and things like that. Hey, my guy's now a starter. My guy's now in the 2 deep. Maybe you should be getting a little bit more. You take away those headaches, right? You move away from that. Now that we're at game week, this is what we get. A couple of top of the fold headliners. And if you're watching along with this on YouTube, I'll put those up there. If you're listening on the podcast side, we will talk through this one as you can get a little bit better look of what this is. I think at the top, probably offensively, the most surprising thing that we see in the Iowa football depth chart is right at the top of the release, and that is Sam Phillips listed as a starter over Reece Vander at one of the wide receiver spots. Now, Iowa now has 3 starting wide receivers that are listed. Yes, that's something a little bit different than we're used to, but with Sam Phillips, a guy that is 9 inches shorter, 30-some pounds lighter, you talk about 2 wide receivers that are built completely differently. That is Sam Phillips and Reece Vander. Vander, we saw a year ago, thrust onto the scene, had that big opener against Illinois State. He was banged up a lot last season, but we definitely know the upside of the true sophomore Reece Vander and what he can be. And there's 5'7" Sam Phillips. And at 183 pounds, he is a speedster. He comes in from Chattanooga, put up nice numbers there. One thing that you hear about Sam Phillips, though, is not just the speed. Yes, he is a speedster. And to play college football at even the level of FCS football and here at the Big Ten level, you're 5'7", you better have some wheels. And Sam Phillips definitely has that. But it's not just the speed that he has. He's also a very good route runner. Now, also understand, he is learning this offense, coming in the spring like he did and starting to understand what this is going to look like and what that's going to be. I thought that was probably maybe our biggest surprise that we see those Sam Phillips. And it's not to say that Reece Vander isn't going to play and that Reece Vander is not going to be out there. We know that there is going to be a pretty big rotation out of this wide receiver room, but definitely a headliner there. The other 2 starting receivers are 2 older guys. Seth Anderson listed at 1 spot, and we've continued to hear that Seth Anderson has been nothing short of tremendous during spring football and here during August camp. We've seen flashes, but they just have been so small, so minuscule that you can't get overly excited about him because of the injuries that have been there for Seth Anderson. Now he's healthy, and it sounds like it's finally all coming together for Seth Anderson. And then the other one, the dependable guy, the leading wide receiver from a year ago, Jacob Gill, came in after starting his career at Northwestern, was just exactly what you want. Solid, dependable, knew what he was going to do, make the tough catch, get out there and be a willing blocker, doing all those things. Behind Seth Anderson, it was Caden Weechin who was listed. Another thing going back to spring, we've heard that they want to get him more involved in the offense and being more than just a gadget guy. used more than just in the jet sweeps and talking about the great speed. That is something you certainly have with Caden Weechin. And then KJ Parker, the redshirt freshman out of Illinois. He is a guy that has been talked about a ton, just a playmaker. That's the term that always comes up when people talk about KJ Parker. The kid knows how to make plays. And when you talk about Phillips, and you talk about Seth Anderson, and you talk about KJ Parker, and you talk about Caden Weechin, you're talking about four guys with speed. That is a component that the Tim Lassiter offense sorely lacked a year ago, and I think they want to get that back in there, and it's going to be a big component of stretching that field vertically this season. Let's go from wide receiver to the guy that's going to be chucking the ball to him, and it's no surprise, Mark Gronowski is your starter at the cornerback position. 6'2", 235, coming in from South Dakota State. We've talked about him a ton. We're out of things to say at this point, right? Yes, was it a slow start to camp? Absolutely. We'll hear from the players on Tuesday, and we'll get a little bit more perspective on that coming your way. But Mark Gronowski is your starter with Hank Brown as the backup. I don't want to say surprised, but I anticipated that we were going to see maybe three guys listed on the depth chart at quarterback, that maybe they were going to throw a bone to Jeremy Hecklinski, the Wake Forest transfer. Not the case. It is Hank Brown alone. Speaking of having a great camp, Hank Brown sounded like it was a tremendous one for what very well could be the heir apparent at the quarterback position in Hank Brown. Let's go next to running back, and another interesting spot here for the Iowa football depth chart. It is Kamari Moulton that is listed as the starter. Now, as we've seen, Kamari Moulton has been a little bit banged up. Moulton has dealt with a few injuries so far throughout the course of camp. Soft tissue issue that he was working his way through. You kind of know what you have in Kamari Moulton, though. You know, we saw enough of him a year ago. He was a lot of people's pick to click last season when we were in August camp until Caleb turned into Caleb, right? And did the incredible things that he did. Terrell Washington Jr., though, listed as the backup, and there's some oars there. So you got three oars then listed. Terrell Washington Jr., Xavier Williams showing up on the depth chart, and there is Jazion Patterson. We've talked about him quite a bit here recently, but four guys listed. Do you read into it of what you see at the number 2 spot with Terrell Washington Jr. listed there? Another guy that was a little banged up at times during camp. Looks like he's good to go. And I think seeing Xavier Williams there, that big-bodied running back, in Xavier Williams, if you saw him at Kids Day, you saw him in spring practice, you can see he is a bigger kind of running back, and that more looks like a goal line type of back, right? He's got some size to him to go along with the power of Xavier Williams. Jazion Patterson. Now, we don't see Nathan McNeil, the true freshman that has got a lot of buzz. He doesn't show up on this depth chart. And we also don't see the 6th running back in Brevin Dahl. I will be surprised if we don't see a little bit of Brevin Dahl if Iowa pulls away like I think they will Saturday against Albany. So that's what we have at the running back group. Next up, let's go to tight end. This is probably the easiest one. Addison Ostrenga is your starter. Number 2 is Zach Ortworth. And then Hayden Large is your number 3. And Hayden Large, more of that H-back, old fullback role. That's what you're going to get with Hayden Large. No surprises, no new names on there, no freshmen that are bopped up, anything like that. But that's what you have at the tight end position. Let's go next, though, to the offensive line. And maybe the biggest battle coming in is at left tackle. It is listed Jack Dotzler at the top, Trevor Lauk as the second one listed with an oar underneath. And then Bryce George is listed 3rd on the depth chart. As I've said, I think Trevor Lauk will be the guy that we will see in the starting role. Dotzler's going to play a lot, and he's going to be a guy also that you're going to see backing up at right tackle, more than likely your swing tackle. As long as Trevor Lauk is able to hit the ground running, doesn't run into big-time issues, I think you're going to see him a lot. And then Dotzler becomes that swing guy. In fact, he is listed then as the backup to Jennings Dunker at right tackle, along with Trevor Lauk. Let's go inside on the offensive line. It is Bo Stevens, no surprise there, 21 career starts. He gets the starting nod at left guard with Leighton Jones backing him up. Another heir apparent there. And your likelihood next season is you're going to see probably 2 guys from Indianapolis, from Indiana, Leighton Jones at left guard and Trevor Lauk at left tackle. In the middle, we knew it was going to be Logan Jones. And a story that we've talked about before, Michael Myslinski, seeing him there, he's battled so many injuries, and I hope he's able to get out there and get some snaps this season. A guy that has battled through, coming in from Florida, and has persevered and finds himself on the depth chart. Wrapping things up, Cade Pieper is your starter at right guard. But here's another surprise for you. A true freshman before a game's even been played. Lucas Allgaier is listed as the backup at the right guard position. Now we'll see. Want to maintain red shirt. Obviously, if injuries hit, what that's going to be. Allgaier, good accolades coming out. He's got the bloodlines. His dad was a Hawkeye back in the day. And some good things when you see a guy show up at that level. I think that is definitely an eye-opener. So that's what we have on the depth chart. On the offense, we take a look next at the defense. Some surprises over there as well as we dive into the Iowa football depth chart. Game week is here, and we got you covered. Stay right there as we continue a look at the defensive depth chart on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. You can take a look at the MVP. How about crowning your champion or picking who's going to play in that championship? I got the Ravens in the Super Bowl, beat the 49ers. That's a pretty good price. You can find it on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Parlay your division winners, find some dark horses out there, and your chance to win big. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only, and that day is today. FanDuel, play your game. Trent Condon back with you once again on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. And a big thank you to each and every one of you out there, including our everydayers with us every day. We are your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast. Hey, we do have an important request for you right now. Locked On does want to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is a chance to tell us what you like, maybe what you don't like, and you can do it right now with us and with Locked On. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can find the link in the show notes, and thanks for helping us out. As we look now a little bit deeper at the depth chart, let's flip over to the defensive side of things and take a peek at what we saw. Opening things up, and let's go first to the defensive line for the Hawkeyes, and a couple of things that I think stand out a little bit when you're looking at the defensive line. Now, the starters on the end positions, Max Llewellyn, Ethan Hurkett, no surprises there. That's what we anticipated. Great to see Brian Allen listed there coming off the offseason surgery. We talk a lot about Brian Allen. This is a Brian Allen fan club podcast right here. Absolutely love what you see out of the guy. Made a couple of plays. He showed up on Kids Day. He showed up in spring practice. He could get to the quarterback, and now becoming that complete defensive end. And him and Kenneth Merriweather, another guy that they really like. You get excited about the future of what they have, along with the guys in Llewellyn and Hurkett that have definitely approved it at this level. Defensive tackle on the left side, it's Aaron Graves. No surprise. But how about this? The other starter is Bryce Hawthorne. So this goes back to some summer conversations that we had here on Locked On Hawkeyes. And there was a lot of talk about Bryce Hawthorne. They got more than they even anticipated. I think we heard maybe it was Kelvin Bell mention, we should have recruited him out of high school. He was maybe an inch shorter than we wanted. We should have just done it at that time, not allowed him to go to South Dakota State. We should have recruited him. They did, but they got him now. And when they brought him in, first of all, you have the injury for Jeremiah Pittman, who was the anticipated starter at the other defensive tackle spot. And we will see how much, if any, we're going to be able to get out of him at that defensive tackle spot, certainly early in the season. But when they went out and brought in Jonah Pace, that was the first guy, a grad transfer out of Central Michigan, solid, productive, good size, 6'5", 285, all right? Plug and play type of guy, right? And then they get Hawthorne, and Hawthorne just kept impressing. I mean, time in and time out, whatever they were doing, he's still just a sophomore too. Thinking that you got 3 years potentially of Bryce Hawthorne, that is incredibly exciting. We'll see about Jeremiah Pittman. He is not listed, though, on the depth chart. On the other side, opposite Aaron Graves, number 2 on that list is Will Hubert, a guy that has built himself into a dependable guy and hoping to get into the rotation in the middle of that Iowa defense. All right, let's go next to linebacker. Let's start with the traditional spots. In the middle, again, no surprise, Jaden Harrell. He waited his turn, the Urbandale kid waiting his turn, and he gets the nod at the middle linebacker spot. 6'2", 237. He sat behind Jay Higgins. He sat behind Jack Campbell, and here he is in his final year of eligibility with his opportunity to get things done. Then it is Jaden Montgomery. I've told you, I've heard it plenty of times. If Harrell falters, they believe they got something there in Jaden Montgomery, and the gap maybe not real big between those two guys. At the will spot, Carson Shire. I've run out of superlatives to say. If you don't believe in the hype train now, I don't know what else to say you. Jackson Rexroth is listed as his backup out of Cedar Rapids. Xavier Rexroth, though, he's flipped around. He's also listed as the starter at the Leo spot. When they go to a 4-3, Rexroth will be the guy out there. He's been a great special teamers, played a little bit defensively. Also listed at that Leo spot behind Rexroth is Landon Van Kickrit. Speaking of special teamer, felt like he was all over the place last year. When you're watching kickoffs, felt like 23 was down there all the time. Now we get into where things start to get a little bit goofy. And this is where the change is coming, maybe, how I was going to play defensively. The starter at cash is Zach Lutmer. Entringer is listed as his backup. So as we've talked about this position and going back to Las Vegas, talking to Koen Entringer there, we talked about all the guys that played the cash position, talked about, maybe what he could do different, but you could tell this was definitely a guy that understood what this position is and what Phil Parker has built at the cash. So with Lutmer listed as a starter, I anticipate this is more seeing Koen Entringer just being able to be solid at one spot. So at strong safety, then Entringer is listed as a starter with Lutmer, and maybe you're not flipping around. We saw this a lot the last couple of years with Sebastian Castro moving from cash, then going back to safety, and maybe it's just a way to simplify things a little bit. But then it goes a step further, and you go over to free safety, and now Koen Entringer is listed again. He is listed as an or with Xavier Wampa. I don't know what to think. I mean, this one is a little bit confounding. We haven't seen this happen very often, where you can make an argument. Koen Entringer is almost listed at 3 different spots as a starter. Now, it's not the case, and he can't do that. You're not going to play 9 and 11, but I think it also says what they think about him. And there's a reason he was sent to Las Vegas. The players absolutely love him. The highlight play of his career, missing a tackle and then coming all the way back on the punt return against Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. I know that's a lot of people certainly know him, but there's a lot more there. I couldn't have been more impressed talking with him in Las Vegas. He is sharp. He understands the game. He understands the media game. Really like him. And I think you're going to see a big season out of him. Also listed at the free safety position, another walk-on, Cale Kolarek from Indianola, called some of his games in high school, and he was a kid that definitely popped. And then we wrap up defensively at the cornerback spot. So you got TJ Hall listed as a starter on one side, and then on the other, it is Deshaun Lee. Those are the two guys, certainly most veteran, of the two guys that we've seen the most throughout the time, and that doesn't come as a surprise. Jalen Watson is listed as the backup, though, at both spots. I think that says pretty strongly that Jalen Watson is your number 3. Then you have an or at the left side with Shaheed Barrows, the South Dakota transfer, who comes in for his final season. And then on the right side, listed as an or, is Rashad Godfrey, out of Florida, redshirt freshman. Godfrey, good size, probably the biggest of the cornerbacks that they have in the room to go along with TJ Hall, and excited about having that big corner maybe in the future with him. Don't be surprised, though, if Jalen Watson ends up starting more games this year than Deshaun Lee. I think he is a guy that they absolutely are enamored with. Playmaking ability again. And when Phil Parker and Kirk Ferentz, two guys that don't exactly light things up when it comes to young players, when you hear somebody's name mentioned as often as we've heard Jalen Watson, I pay attention to that. You should. So there's your bold take of the day. Jalen Watson's going to start more games than everybody decided TJ Hall this season at the cornerback spot. And then we wrap things up with the specialists. Now, here's something interesting. We do not have kick returners listed on here. We know Caden Weegan is going to be one of those guys. Who else is going to be back with him on kick returns, though? We'll see. Max White was the guy a year ago that was back there. He's not on the roster anymore. So it will be somebody different. Punt returns, we know it'll be Rugiet. Who else? But then also, speaking of specialists, of course, Drew Stevens is your starter. Reece Dakin, your starter at kicker and punter. Easy. But no backups listed. And also, the long snapper position. So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. They got the Boston College transfer. And maybe we're going to see potentially two different guys snapping the football. One for field goals and one for punts. Maybe that's the reason they weren't listed here, but just something a little bit odd. Depth chart number 1. Overreacting to depth charts. Yes, that's what we do as we hit week 1 of the season. So Iowa faces off against Albany. What does Albany look like? We will talk about that when we come back. How much of a push are the Hawkeyes going to get from the Great Danes? A look at the Albany Great Danes when we come back. Locked on Hawkeyes. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, maybe even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked for you, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use the promo code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege with the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for a full safety information. Trent Condon back with you one final time. Hello to everybody out there as we count down to kickoff here. It is game week and we got you covered. So later on Tuesday, we are going to have the press conference. We'll hear from Kirk Ferentz. We'll hear some of the players, and we'll have reaction for that one coming up on for you, on Wednesday as we start to dive in a little bit deeper to this one. But as we hit into this final game, final countdown to the game this week against Albany, let's take a look at the Great Danes. You start at the top with Albany. This is a team without a full-time head coach. That's right. They have an interim coach coming into the season, and it's not like they didn't have time. Back in the spring, their head coach made the decision to leave for Penn State to become an analyst. And so they go into this one with, instead of handing the job to somebody or conducting a search to find a head coach, they just hand off the reins to an interim coach. Interesting. So Albany was in the semifinals of the FCS playoffs 2 years ago. And as we know, programs are pretty good. Now they had Jared Verse on their team, who went on to Florida State and now is in the NFL. And that definitely helped. They also got throttled in the semifinals by South Dakota State and Mark Gronowski, but pretty good program 2 years ago. And then last year, they go 4-8. They got blown out by West Virginia. They lost at 1.5 consecutive games. They average under 20 points per game. And things don't look much better this year. This is a year where Iowa, normally, yes, Iowa takes on FCS teams, but I think they like to test themselves a little bit. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, we know how good those programs are. UNI, Illinois State was a ranked team a year ago coming into the year, taking on some of those better Missouri Valley teams, but still with as many question marks as Iowa have. I don't know if Iowa minds having a team like this as opposed to taking on one of those heavyweights, one of the top teams at the FCS level. I think they're okay with this. I was talking to somebody connected with the football program over the weekend, and I asked the question about this team, and it came back to me, they're bad. So this should be easy. And the point spread tells you this should be easy. Iowa is a huge favorite in this game, one of the biggest that they've been in a number of years. And though there's been some big numbers in the past, this is definitely one where Iowa goes into it as the big favorite. Taking a look currently at FanDuel, Iowa's up to now a 38.5 point favorite in the ball game. That's right, 38.5 point favorite with an over-under of 50.5. If you like Iowa unders, I don't know if this is going to be the game for you. Albany's going to be bad, folks. So this is going to be a game where let's not overreact. Let's not freak out. How good it looks, because I think it's going to look good. And if Iowa gets a ton of tackles for loss and sacks and a couple interceptions defensively, let's not overreact. If the offense is out there, they're chucking around, they're making all kinds of big plays, because this is, again, supposed to be a team pretty bad at their level. They were picked to finish 12th in their preseason poll in their conference. In the Coastal Athletic Conference, they were picked 12th out of 14 teams. This should be domination. This should be Iowa basically picks their score. And that's going to mean Hank Brown, and that's going to mean all those running backs, and that's going to mean everybody's going to get a shot. Because right after that, it's Iowa State. And things are going to change, certainly, with the Cyclones after what we saw from them in week 1 in that win against K-State. Don't anticipate a whole lot of pushback from the Great Danes. There is your quickie preview for Iowa and Albany. Back with it tomorrow as we will react to what we hear, Kirk Ferentz press conference, along with the players meeting the media over in Iowa City. Speaking of Iowa City, I will be there on Friday. I'll be doing my radio show from Fry Fest, so make sure to stop by. I'll be on from noon until 2 with my radio show, Miller and Condon, on the Iowa Sports Radio Network, including in Iowa City on 800 KXIC, Cedar Rapids on 95.7. You can also find us over there. So if you're over at Fry Fest, make sure to stop in and say hi. I'm going to have a little bit of time that I can hang out for a while afterwards before I got to get back to Des Moines, as I'll be on the call for Valley Dowling on the radio. And that'll be my Friday night and a kickoff to the high school football season, which should be a whole lot of fun. Your team every day. We got you covered here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. 5-star review on the podcast side. All of it helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. A big thank you to everydayers with us each and every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.